This is the Book of Dad with Robert Benson, an upbeat weekly review of personal anecdotes, helpful tips, and communal chat about the ups and downs of parenting. Your host, Robert Benson, knows that being a dad is not easy, but this show is for all the dads just trying to do their best. Now, here's Robert.
Hey, welcome to the Book of Dad radio show. This is Dr. Robert Benson. As always, before we get started, we want to say thank you to Jehovah. Thank Him for His Son, Jesus Christ. Thank Him for our families. Thank Him for work and our ability to do the things we're able to do. Book of Dad radio show, Life and Spirit Online, NASCA Network, and I'm hanging out with my main man, Eddie G. What's up, Eddie?
Hey, sir. How are you today? How you making out?
Doing pretty good, man. I mean, we are all under the claw and auspices and control of the procedures that have to be maintained with this COVID-19, huh?
Oh, it's amazing. And I just want to say thanks to all the frontline workers out there, people holding it down, and for everybody just to be safe. Continue to do social distancing and just be vigilant about it.
Absolutely, yeah. And we're going to be vigilant and do our part to contribute to the knowledge base of our listeners by bringing them relevant information from qualified people to share that information with. And today is this show is no exception to what we're going to do as far as our contribution to preventing and creating awareness because of this virus. But to that end, we're just going to jump right in and say hello to Dr. Jemima Kankam, Distinguished Life Fellow of the American Psychiatric Association. Dr. Kankam, thank you for joining us, and how are you today?
Good, and thank you for having me.
No.
And making mental health important.
Oh, absolutely. It is important. I mean, we're going to throw a buffet of questions at you today to try and enlighten our audience. So much so, I mean, I got a bunch of them written down, but we really like to be sporadic and have conversations with our guests. And you are no exception to that. Share a little bit about yourself so we can get, a conversational tone going. I know you're from Ghana, so you're an international scholar as well as a national one. So talk to us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, so I'm originally from Ghana. I did my medical education in Ghana and completed my psychiatric residency. Became a specialist in psychiatry. In Maryland, at the University of Maryland. And I've been in practice since 1991. So I'm not young. I'm not exactly young chicken. But my experience has made me an advocate because there are many people suffering and don't know it. People know more about the so-called physical illnesses than the mental illnesses. And yet, we need both. To have your total health, you need both. So I'm glad that you've given the opportunity for mental health to be discussed on your show.
Okay. Well, to get started, I work with a lot of social workers over time, and I've worked in a program where people were homeless. And there appeared to be a correlation to mental health and people who are homeless. Can you share a little bit about that quagmire, if you will, especially with this coronavirus situation that we have now? We have people who are homeless, and they have mental health issues, and we still want to maintain being quarantined. What are some things you can share with us to kind of shed some light on that?
Well, we know that in terms of mental health, there are some social, economic correlates, of health. People become mental health illnesses usually start in early part of our life. Unfortunately, people don't get diagnosed and therefore don't get treatment, and that sets them back in terms of being able to go ahead. Maybe, sometimes it contributes to dropping out of school, getting into substance use, getting into legal problems, and therefore, no job, being on the street, it becomes a vicious cycle. But these are also people in the community, and they need to be protected just as much as anybody else. So with this coronavirus and education, hopefully there is arrangement for getting them also protected, getting the education out there. Some of them are parents. Many are parents. They care for their children. They just have fallen on hard times because of the vicious cycle.
So again, with them being quarantined and stuff, so are we setting up special shelters for them to keep them, to get them off the street, or are they just kind of almost being ignored, or are you privy to that kind of information right now?
No, probably your social workers would know. Each state is different, but there are systems that I'm sure are helping, because if they are not protected, then they're also spreading.
Right.
So if you just take a segment of society, then you're not helping the problem.
I see.
So there are different organizations, Red Cross and homeless shelters that have been, at least in my state of Maryland, I think they are given latitude to be able to help the homeless. So I think in every state, hopefully in every state, that's being considered.
I see. Well, the next question I want to ask you is, before Ed digs in with some other stuff, I know that we're being innovative now in the way of still providing medical service, if you will. But I want to circle back and drill down further into you and what kind of caused you or made you want to become a mental health psychiatrist?
Well, when I go back, I've always been told that even when I rotated in non-psychiatric, departments, specialties, that bond with a patient, getting to know the person behind the symptoms, it seems that it's always been something that's been, there are things that it's just you. Whether you come in for your leg that is broken or not, I've always wanted to know the person's story. And so that got me gravitating towards mental health. Mm-hmm. And I've learned a lot from my patients, because if you're just there for sleeping and I can focus, that's not the whole story. Illnesses live within us and our life. So the life behind the symptoms. So that's always been my thing.
Well, I want to ask you one more question now. Is it awkward being a psychiatrist, being interviewed or asked questions like this? Because typically in your profession, you're on the other end. You're kind of, probing other people yourself. How about that?
Oh, no. For me, as you see my CV says, the education is so important. Like I said, I've been doing this for about 30 years, and I have a standing invitation to my patients, and I've spoken in many churches, because it is, when it comes to mental health, it is the myths and misunderstanding, and sometimes we seem not to be able to communicate it, simply, and people suffer for no reason. So the probing is good. That helps the understanding.
Okay, so now I got one more question for you, and then we're gonna take a quick break. Or I'm gonna state a couple things. Now, this situation that we're in right now really does create an opportunity for us to be creative, for us to do things that are kind of outside the box, if you will. But they're also stifling to what appears to be our normal desire to do things. Like, it's normal for us to want to interact. It's normal for us to want to get outside. How does this locking down on us and controlling us contribute or detract from mental health in general?
There are two sides of it. There is the emotional response to this unexpected, scary, invisible, thin virus that it's blanketed, the stories about is blanketed everywhere, and it's scary, and it's normal to be scared.
Okay.
That's number one thing. It is okay to be scared. There is no shame. You're not weak to be scared.
Okay.
It is, it causes anxiety, which is normal. Normal anxiety helps us take precautions. Okay. And that's one part. The other part is the confinement, because part of also, especially for the youth, part of growing, developing is interaction with your peers, playing outside, going to school. So, and then with the confinement, it's really not helping what we say young people should do in order to develop, but it's the safe thing to do. But the important thing is recognizing that there are issues, that this also creates, especially the adults to recognize.
Okay.
And the first, the first step to writing or modify things is recognition.
Okay.
So we can even dive further into that, because that's very important.
Okay, well then, let's take a quick break so we can dive further into the recognition piece of that. That's a great response. This is Dr. Robert Benson talking to Dr. Jemima Kankam with my main man, Eddie G, Book of Dad Radio Show, and we'll be right back.
Hey, this is Erica Janae, and you're listening to Life and Spirit Radio.
The U.S. dollar will collapse. Learn why you should buy physical silver and gold. Order Dr. G's P3. Plan, prepare, protect. Visit www.ygliv.com or call 800-705-6840.
Hey, and we're right back. Dr. Robert Benson with my main man, Eddie G. Life and Spirit Online, Ask a Network, the Book of Dad Radio Show. And we're talking about COVID-19 with renowned and respected and sought after Dr. Jemima Kankam, who was talking to us a lot about natural responses as far as this, the limitations and such that the curfews and such from COVID-19 are putting on us. She talked about three things. One, she said, was about, it's okay to be scared. And two was dealing with the confinement. And then when we took off at the break, she was talking about number three, which is recognition. And Dr. Kankam is going to tell us more about recognition.
So, recognition that it's tough. It's tough for both adults and the young ones. But we adults, we are more developed in our coping capacity, and the young ones are more vulnerable. So there are, sometimes we see on TV, people show they are drawing, children and their parents, they are drawing things, doing things together, but it's not every family that is that way. And it's not every family that has that big house that some of them are in one room and the other person, it creates a problem. Some children, school was their solace. School was their outlet. Playing with friends on the outside was their outlet. With some families, some children, it was after school going to grandma's house and going to auntie's house. So all this is caused a major, it creates a need for a major adjustment. And even for the adults, for some, it becomes tension in the household. And that needs to be talked about. And when there's tension, it drifts down to the children also. So the recognition that both adults may be stressed, it may not all that be the lovey-dovey that we see on TV. Adults do, some of them, their job may be the outlet. Everybody, just because you have a loving relationship doesn't mean you still need interaction. So some people need that, talking to their colleagues. So all that, you are bunched up in the house, and we need to remember that it can create those tensions. Once you know, then you start to think, what can I do to make it easy? Children, sometimes we are just talking at them or telling them what to do. But what helps you may not be what helps them. And how they've been coping while you are at work doing your double job, you don't know how they cope. So it's helpful to explore. Let's ask them, how they hear all this news. How do you feel? What do you know about it? What is your fear? What is your, what do you think will happen? Because as much as we hear death around us, there's also, many people who survived, and we need to balance that, especially when we are talking around children. So, number one, trying to balance the two. Yes, it is very serious, and we need to take precautions, and it's very important. There are things one can control, but we need to highlight what we control. We control doing the things we've been told: wash your hands and touch your face, put on your mask when you go. Those we control. We can't control what the virus is doing. So we need to highlight. And that would even be a way of teaching children. There will be times in their lives when there are things they control and others they don't control. The tendency is for us to chase that which we don't control, trying to change somebody's mind and overlook what we can control. So the discussion, exploring rather than do this and don't do that, yes, there has to be structure. That's also important, even though they are not going to school. Sleep time.
Dr. Kankam, that brings to mind, it's an opportunity, as you said, to kind of reconnect with your children. If you are working all the time and you really don't get the chance to interact every day, of course, when you come home from work, and as you said, if you're working 2 jobs, you don't have that long-term connection except on the weekend. And you can easily communicate with your family and your kids and even your spouse if you think about it in the terms of, let's get to know each other better in this opportunity, because we're going to be cooped up in this house and there may be some tensions. There may be opportunities to learn more about each other. And that's I think the illusion people have, is just because you're a family that you really know each other. And that's not always the case,
I like the way you put it. Let's get to know each other better. Right. Because this even happens when people, when they retire. And some people, they just getting to know each other better because they were at work all the time and not used to be in the house under the same roof for 24 hours. And this is happening also now. Opportunity. That's why I said, when you recognize that, then it's not what's going on. You know that, yes, for many hours they're in school. I'm at work. So this is something different. This is, it's almost like strangers in a way. Not right. Because you are a bad parent, it's just what the situation was. So you can be creative. That is where if I want to get to know someone, I want to know a little bit about that person. What has been helping? Who are their friends? What has been helping when you are away to work? And so it creates that opportunity. Same thing for spouses. And for some people, it's not just you and your spouse. It's a cousin. It's the grand aunt, and it's many people in the house. So the opportunity is to improve our communication. And
there's another analogy that comes to mind is if you were stranded on a desert island with the same people, right? You would have to figure out how to get along, because you don't know when you're going to get rescued. Just like now, we don't know when we're going to be rescued, but you have to be combined with these people, and you have to make it work.
Okay, Gillian.
And one of the important things about communication is we, and when I say we, humans, we kind of sometimes think, oh, I know what's on your mind. I know what you're thinking. Or genuinely use certain words that I assume I know what you mean. And even in our field, many relationships break down not because they don't care about each other, but those assumptions. So clarifying, you said this, you looked at me this way, you didn't do this, for us to practice saying, what did you mean? Or I assume that you meant this. Is that what you meant? That little thing, just those words, can do a whole lot. And whether it's our children, our friends, it's important.
Well, Dr. Kankam and Eddie G, those are some great points. And it really sounds to me like, Dr. Kankam, you are alluding to just improved communication. Now, withstanding that hasn't existed or has been limited over time, how much of it is too much? Or should we be making concerted efforts, or should we just let things flow, if you know what I mean?
Well, we communicate all the time. We communicate, but this is going to need extra effort on everybody's part.
Yes, ma'am.
And sure, there are other opportunities. That we need all that is going. We need our faith. There are many ways of coping. There are some people also who have underlying mental health conditions that have not been diagnosed. So we talk about it's normal to be anxious, but in the normal anxiety, it's balanced by being able to see the positive. For people who have the illness that we call anxiety disorder or anxiety illness, it's almost like the mind can't see the positive. It is, we call it catastrophic thinking. Oh my God. You don't see that some people also are, recovering. All the mind can see is, oh my God, I'm going to get it. And what happens? And on and on and on. And if someone is in that, then it becomes very, very difficult to cope. And also to know that, just like people have diabetes, they have asthma and other things, there is medical help. There's medical help. You can call. Every state has their number to call for mental health assistance. And again, there is no shame. There are illnesses, just like there are illnesses that makes us not able to walk fast. There are illnesses that avoid or hinder being able to cope with them.
Okay. Well, great. These are great points and a great discussion. This is Dr. Robert Benson with my main man, Eddie G. Dr. Jemima Kankam, and we'll be right back.
Well, great day to every one of you. This is Dr. Gilbert Coleman, and man, yes, it's out. It has finally landed. Transforming the Minds of Men, the book is out. You need to make sure you rush to get your copy right away. Man, the books are flying off the shelves as we speak to you. So therefore, you need to make sure you get your copy right away. You can go to gilbertcoleman.com. That's my website, gilbertcoleman.com, and order your book right now. I guarantee you're going to be blessed beyond measure because it will absolutely begin to address some of the things that you've been asking questions about for so long. Even some of the questions that you guys would ask me in some of the various men's conferences and seminars and workshops that I've done. But now the reality of it, the book is here.
Hey, Apostle Coleman, this is Tyrell Austin. I want to thank you for that book. Has literally changed my life. I read that book so much. It amazes me that you have that much wisdom to help people like that. I thank you.
Transforming the Minds of Men. You need to get your copy right away. Again, go to my website, gilbertcoleman.com. That's gilbertcoleman.com. You're about to have your life be blessed in a way like you've never been blessed before.
Hey, welcome back to the Book of Dad Radio Show with Dr. Robert Benson and me, Eddie G. Today we are really having some great conversation about mental health, and we want to jump right back into it with our good friend, Dr. Kankam. I have a question for you, Doctor. It seems that in the African-American community, mental health is a taboo topic, and it's something that we really need to embrace. And I see there's efforts to do it now. I see commercials on TV with Queen Latifah and some others who are mentioning that mental health is not a negative thing, but something that can help you live a healthier lifestyle. What can we do to get African Americans to embrace taking care of their mental health?
So that's a very good, question and a good topic. Like I said, since in the last 30 years, recognizing this, I have an offer to any African-American patient that I work with, and many have invited me to their churches, and it's really gratifying and encouraging to see that some churches have included mental health as part of their health fair. So I give kudos to that, but we need more. It stems from the myth that is from weakness or is from not being, your faith not being strong enough. Definitely science didn't know as much about mental health as it did about other so-called physical health like cardiovascular, like diabetes. But we know a whole lot now for people not to suffer in silence. Many people, I see mainly adults, but many people who come in their 30s, 40s, they can trace the onset to come to even middle school and lower. Sometimes it is people, this is a troublemaker, or this person has anger issues, or this person is sometimes lazy, or they are two-faced. Those, it's unfortunate that an illness, we don't call for illness, an illness that we don't ask for, but there is variety of treatments for, we suffer under it. So, yes, you're right. One of the myths, that mental health, first of all, everybody has a mental health. We are all hardwired to have mental health. Just like we have physical health. Mental health stems from the organ, the brain, the brain organ. Now, mental health is not just about healing. It's a decision-making system. It's what decisions our brain gets all these ideas, sees all these things around, and it is how you process it, what you make of it, is what is going to determine how we feel. So if you're feeling like, oh my God, I'm going to this virus is going to kill me tomorrow, can you imagine how you feel? You are anxious. Then we feel that feeling with our body too. So sometimes our sleep pattern changes and you can't sleep and your mind is worrying or your stomach hurts. Some people will feel they are feeling, they know that it hurts me in my tummy. So all those three things, how the mind thinks about things, what it makes them feel, and how it affects our physical body. All those three things make the emotion, not just feeling. So in the normal times, the worry makes us do the right thing. If you're crossing the street, you worry about, I'll be knocked down by a car, so you look left and right and you go. It's balance.
Right.
When there is an illness, the mind is only set, for example, a lot is talked about anxiety. The mind is set in, oh my God, the car is going to kill me, no matter what, it's going to kill me. And so you are paralyzed. You can't even cross the street. So the normal anxiety helps us. It helps us prepare for exam. It helps us do the right thing for us. The abnormal, the medical, where we say it's a disorder that hinders us from functioning.
Dr. Kankam, can I ask you a question about that? Now, you focused on the COVID virus thing. Well, I want to ask a question in general, as far as a person's propensity to have a certain disposition of mental health on different areas based on characteristics. For instance, a person who's short or a person who's tall, a person who looks a certain way or doesn't look a certain way. How does that impact mental health, or does it? Or is there research that determines that it does?
It doesn't. Your physical doesn't. Just like your physical appearance doesn't determine how your heart functions.
Mm-hmm.
No, it doesn't. It's more actually our mental health is determined or is influenced a lot by our childhood experiences, partly hereditary childhood experiences.
Okay.
It influences it because it's almost like you look at it as we have like, call it four sacks. The positive, the happy sack, the anxious worry sack, the anger sack, and what's the third one now? The happy, sad, worried, I forget it, the anger sack. Okay. And you get to know as you are with your family that you grew up in, and you get to know when this word is said, it connotes an angry meaning. And so that's why it's even culturally influenced. Because what is annoying in one culture or is, disrespectful in one culture may not be the same. So you grow up forming your mood, and that becomes almost like the lens, just like you look through the lens in your eye, it becomes the lens in our mind. And that's how we interpret things. Okay. But the good thing is, it's not fixed in stone. So it can be modified. As children go out, they go to school, they go out in the community, you can change the things that you believe to be, every time somebody says this word, it's angry or it's sad making, you can change it. That's just like we go to the gym and we build, we build a muscle, we can also change or modify. Okay. But there are times, just like when the body is broken, when you have a broken arm, you can't go to the gym. You have to go to see a doctor. When the mind is ill in such a way that you can function, you can use the anxiety or the anger. Let's take anger. Okay. You can't hold your anger. You can't look at the other side, and so you react or overreact to it and get in trouble. Some of these are medical illnesses. And instead of people getting into legal problems, they need the medical help. So it's just like physical illnesses that you can go from normal blood pressure to abnormal to getting a stroke from it. In the same way, you can have normal emotion, which some are distressful. Anxiety is distressing, but it's still a normal emotion. Sadness is distressing, but it's normal emotion. But any of those can that move into becoming an illness. And when it's an illness, it is causing you great distress. It is interfering with appropriately interacting with others, which all humans do. It means you can't hold a job. You may be, you may be very intelligent in terms of book knowledge, but you still have to interact. And it affects our body. You can't sleep. So sometimes people come, and the reason why they are coming to see me is, they can't sleep. They've seen their family doctors, and sometimes, they get sleep medication. But that is not the answer. When they come to us, the only way we know is exploring, finding out what's on your mind when you can't sleep. That's when we know, I worry so much that I can't make myself stop. And when that goes on for a while, then, you become so sad, and it goes on almost every day. It affects your body function. Those are the things, those are the ways that our emotions become health. And this, like I said, it starts early in childhood, but people don't get help. Mm-hmm. And part of it is also hereditary, just like diabetes, hypertension, asthma, and other illness are hereditary. It's knowing, being aware.
It's interesting you mentioned that, and that's the reason why I asked about the physical characteristics, because we get most of our, if not all of our physical characteristics and from hereditary. Is you get it from someone who passed it on. But we want to talk a little bit more about some more stuff. We're going to take another quick break. This is Dr. Robert Benson with my main man, Eddie G. And we are being very, very enlightened by Dr. Jemima Kankam. And we'll be right back.
Are you struggling with debt collectors? Scared to answer the phone? Order Dr. G's Man Survival Kit and learn how to stop creditors. Visit www.ygliv.com or call 800-705-6840.
And we're right back. I'm Dr. Robert Benson with my main man, Eddie G. Book of Dad radio show, Life and Spirit Online on the NASCA Network. And I can tell you up front that we're not going to be able to get all that we want to get out of Dr. Kankam today, because she has so much great information to share on this very, very sensitive topic. But the one thing I personally am going to take away from this is that mental health issues aren't anything to be ashamed of. And you really have to be cognizant of the fact that we all have some sort of vulnerability to it, depending on what's going on, like this COVID virus thing that we talked about. Some great points that Eddie brought up about, improving your communication and stuff with your family while you're here. Me, I was wondering about trying to even force it because of the fact that we have to be around each other a lot more. But we're going to, me, I don't take thunder. I want to give this back to Eddie so he can continue his questions of the doctor, and then we're going to get the doctor to sum up some things with us, and we'll keep going with it. Okay, Eddie, go ahead.
Dr. Kankam, you mentioned mental health, and sometimes there needs to be clarity that people don't understand between I guess a disorder or a mental illness and such. So, and I have ADD, right? So when I was a kid, as you said earlier, the teacher would say, "Oh, that kid's bad," or one teacher would say, "He's the best kid in the world." The other teacher would say, "That guy's bad." and I didn't know until I was an adult. And I talked to my doctor about it, and he asked me some questions, and some of the reasons he said that was because the teachers that I liked, I performed for, I did everything, I got all A's. If there was a teacher I didn't like, I would fail because I wasn't interested in what that person had to say. And as I grew older, the energy from a person with ADD and the thought process is a whole lot different, and some of the things you were talking about really hit home. Even when you're in a situation where you don't sleep or you have a lot of energy, and I'm used to doing a whole lot of things, I'm used to. That's how I run a business and a network, because I can do so many things. But then when you become confined and you can't stretch out and you can't do all those things, it changes your thought patterns because you don't have that freedom. And I would compare it to possibly being in prison, because you have a box that you're put in. And you might say, people who are in prison, that's another area that I wanted to talk about, is the mental health of people who are incarcerated, especially in this situation, because they feel like we're here, we can't get out. There's a big conversation about letting a lot of people out of prison because of the opportunity for the virus to spread. And no, that's a real thing.
I know it
like
is.
A cruise ship.
Yeah, it's like put them on
a cruise ship.
That's crazy.
But they're talking about like low level crimes, not a murder or such. That maybe somebody had some weed or something like that, and that makes sense because they probably shouldn't have been in there in the first place. But
right,
I just wanted to bring that out and have you talk about how do you deal with people who have some sort of disorder, and how do you handle that in a situation where you have no control?
So, let me start with what is close to my heart. You know, I have, in all my practice, I say that I see the real people, you know, the people who can go and pay money cash. So I see the people in the middle and lower socioeconomic, you know, ladder. And a lot of people, because I've always taken the Medicaid, you know, those from the prison. I've never worked in prison, but I've seen many people when they come out of prison. And there are many that would not have been there had they had help for their mental illness. Because like I said, it starts in school, and unfortunately, you know, the system is such that it becomes, you know, at a certain point, the behaviors become you are expelled, you are suspended, and, you know, at some point, many of them drop out or are expelled. And then it goes to, you get into trouble, and that trouble is looked at not through medical lens, but the legal lens. And so many prisons, you have more mental health patients in prison than in outpatient. So that's the reason I appeal to parents to stand up for your children. You know, go to if you see a behavior that is not quite what you expect, take them to the doctor. Take them to their pediatrician. Well, we have to do better because, unfortunately, unless you are training in mental health, in psychiatry, the doctors, the trainee doctors are not exposed adequately to mental health. So there's a lot that needs to be improved in the system. I believe every doctor, no matter what the specialty is, should have adequate knowledge of mental health. Improving a little bit now because children are going to be under their pediatrician until they're 18. Okay. You mentioned ADD. Now, I don't know about you, but for some people, the diagnosis of ADD is based on two things. You are hyper and you can't focus. But there are many illnesses that one can be hyper and not focused. And for some people, it's after 10 years or more that they realize that hyper or not focus is not all from ADD. ADD is one, but it's not the only one. Okay. So as I said before earlier, the only way we can make the right diagnosis is to know the pattern of thought. So when one goes, you know, children can talk. They are more articulate these days than when we were younger. So it's important to ask, to explore from even the child. How are your thoughts? Are they going fast from one thing to another, or they just slow? How do you feel? How is your sleep? Give all that, because it's not the snapshot of what's happening now that we base a diagnosis on. It is what I call the emotional videotape. The changes, the almost like the roller coaster. You know, this changed, this happened. Not things that are happening. Your feelings, change in the thoughts, change in the feelings, change in the physical pattern, like your sleep, your energy. So there are many illnesses that can. It's almost like saying fever. Fever is not an illness. It's a sign of an illness. Cough. Persistent cough is not one illness, as we know now. It's many illnesses. And so, since psychiatry doesn't have the X-ray, we don't take an X-ray. It's not about blood work. It is carefully asking the pattern of changes. I can't stress that enough. When I see someone, even for one time, I don't even assume I'll see them again. And I make sure that I let them know what anybody who they see needs, the information they need in order to give them the correct diagnosis. Because realistically, some people have had different diagnoses over time. Mm-hmm. And what you can do, the control you have is say, so in the past, my thoughts jumped from one thing to another, or my thoughts felt slow, or my thoughts were overly worried. Give as much information. Don't leave anything. Many people get treated first by their primary care physician, their family doctors, or their pediatrician. Mm. But when they go, because they don't want to waste the doctor's time and don't think that emotion is part of what the family doctor needs, they only give a little. They give only the physical.
Hey, Dr. Kankam, can I ask you a quick question about that? I'm sorry to interrupt you here. You mentioned something about how a person's mental health status and such evolves over time. Now, when a child is diagnosed, hypothetically, like Ed talked about with ADD, and they get prescriptions and they get treatment and such like that, as they get older, do they get disqualified or, if you will, categorized into certain things that they can do with their life at a certain point?
Let's put it, there is stigma exists in terms of how people, not in terms of, it's not official that if you have ADD or if you have depression or anxiety that you can't work. Actually, without your mental health ability, you can use your intellectual function. Well, we have seen people, whether it's a professor, whether, an athlete, we hear people who have the book knowledge or have certain skills. Mm-hmm. And because of emotional illness, you can't get to your optimum function. So, no, you need that. The stigma, is there stigma? Stigma meaning people looking down on mental health. Yes, but that's why that's why programs like yours is important.
Yes, ma'am.
Because you don't get ill because you are less than. You get ill because you are human. Right. You don't get diabetes because you did something wrong. And that's the message you want to convey. No, you can. We hear these days and we appreciate the celebrities and high ups who are talking about their mental health. So, no, the answer is no. You do need, there are things that we can do to promote our mental health.
Outstanding. Okay.
Well, like we do. Go ahead.
No, the reason why I asked that, because for years, I was in the military, and I was made to believe that I couldn't do certain functions if I had different ailments. Obviously, the military is one of the few organizations that can discriminate based on a person's mental capacity, their physical ability, and those types of things. And that's what I was concerned about, is that if, say, for instance, hypothetically, a child is taking Ritalin, then they're not going to be able to participate in XXX, if you will. And that's what I was getting at. Yeah, absolutely. I'm a total advocate and proponent of what you're talking about. Mental health is something we need to become a whole lot more aware of, without a doubt. But I was just wondering if there was, in fact, a check-off list or whatever. So if this person had this before or did that, they can't do this. Not that they're not capable of it, but they're not going to be allowed to. And that's what I was getting at.
And you are right, because I have had patients, especially when there was the Iraq War, there were patients who dropped out just because they wanted to enlist.
Right.
And they did not believe that they would be accepted. And indeed, you've been in the military, you would know that there are stigmatizing behaviors. And so the awareness is not just as the people. Awareness is to supervisors. Awareness is to the people at the top, the people, the policy makers. That one being in treatment for their mental health, it actually should be encouraged. Not make people hide. But that's the work that needs to go on.
Absolutely.
So there isn't any official checklist, but sometimes the attitude of other people make it difficult for people to get help. And, in that respect, I sometimes say some people come for help in spite of their family and loved ones, not because of.
Yeah, that's true. That is so true. Well, Dr. Kankam, once again, we are so appreciative of you coming on the show, and we are really out of time. But I'm going to let Eddie G offer a couple closing remarks, and we're going to shut down.
I'm sorry, I was muted for a second. but Dr. Kankam, I just want to thank you for coming on to the program. It is imperative that people are more educated on how to improve their mental health, how to respect it, and how to understand how important it is to function in society. And we need people like yourself that go out there and continue to lend your knowledge and your skill to help us achieve that.
Thank you very much, and kudos to your program for highlighting mental health. We need more of you.
Absolutely. Dr. Kankam, we'll talk to you real soon.
Okay, then.
Right.
Bye.
Hey, another great information sharing session on the Book of Dad radio show. And we're so appreciative of you coming by. And we're not going to beat it to death, but the one thing we want you all to do is to heed the directions that are being given to you from your local and government abroad. Stay the social distancing and all that stuff that we actually have on the show that's out there right now as far as talking about the COVID-19. So I'm just going to close this show out with a real quick quote, and it goes like this. It's easy to have a conversation with someone who you don't have anything to hide from, or you don't have to hide anything from, I should say. Book of That Radio Show, Dr. Robert Benson. We'll talk to you next time.
You can find out more about Robert Benson by visiting his website, thebookofdad.net, where you can purchase your own copies of Robert's books, The Book of Dad, Quotes for a Lifetime of Wisdom, and The Book of Dad 2, more quotes and anecdotes for a lifetime of wisdom.